Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk podcast. This is our United show. This is Devil's Advocate, and today this is our Manchester United versus Newcastle United preview here in the show here today. And so I'm glad to be joined by a very big panel here today. So to the right of me, I'm joined by my former co-host, and he's back on the show here today, Mr. Callum McFadden from Football CFB. I'm also joined by Pete and Martin from Loaded Mag Newcastle podcast as well. So we're here to talk all things Manchester United, all things Newcastle, and obviously the elephant in the room of a certain player returning to Manchester in the transfer window as well. But first of all, I'm going to go around the table and just before we kind of crack into our topics here tonight. Callum, haven't spoken to you in quite some time. Obviously you're doing a lot with your own podcasts, Football CFB, obviously doing a lot with Scottish football as well as talking about Man United. How you've been keeping?
I've been keeping well, Keane. Delighted to be back on the show. As you say, it's been a hectic few months. So obviously now writing for World Football Index and Over the Bar. So a few changes. It's been quite hectic, but delighted to be back on the show. And it feels like a great time to be talking about United. I remember when we used to talk about United after some pretty dismal defeats at times, and you thought, are things going to get better? Are we going to get excitement in the transfer window again and have a team that we can be proud of? And I think we've reached a point where we couldn't ask for much more in this window. So delighted to be back in the show and looking forward to the game on Saturday.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think when we first had this podcast starting last year, it was great kind of after the lockdown when the results were going well. Obviously then when our podcast really kind of was taken off, it was kind of around the time when he got knocked out in nearly every competition. So I think it's great to be back, and it's a different type of conversation we're having at the moment in terms of where we are as a football club, what direction we're going in, and kind of, be interested to get your thoughts kind of on a couple of topics tonight that I do have prepared in terms of tonight's show. And Pete, first time interacting with yourself, you're on Loaded Mag, and just talk to us just to our viewers kind of about your role on Loaded Mag and kind of your I suppose how you got into Newcastle United.
Firstly, thank you for allowing me to be on the show. Pleasure as always. I was sort of drafted in late from Loaded Mag. I was a late arrival, summer signing, if you will. I'm there to just kind of try and keep it real, really, from a Newcastle point of view. I'll tell it how it is. Pull no punches, and I've been supporting Newcastle for 30 years now, so I've travelled up and down the country. I've been to Europe. Back in the day when we were a team fighting in Europe, I used to travel over there, Champions League, Europa League, or UEFA Cup as it was there, and I've kind of been through it all in those 30 years, so it's never a dull moment being a Newcastle fan, put it that way.
Look, Newcastle have had their fair share of ups and downs in the last 20 years, but one thing I can never fault about Newcastle, and I spoke to Martin before about it, is their loyal support. Newcastle have a very large fan base, and they do have very loyal support through thick and thin. And it's one thing I always appreciate about we talk about ownerships in football, and we've had our fair share of the Glazers, but what Newcastle have with Mike Ashley is just, it's rough. It's rough, and the way he runs that football club isn't right. And I was sickened when Newcastle's takeover didn't go through last year, because I thought it would have been great to have them back up in terms of the top tier of English football. Now, next couple of months there is the tribunal and stuff like that due to happen. Remains to be seen. We could see Newcastle's takeover may happen later down the line, which, look, I think at this stage in time you'd like to think anyone but Mike Ashley to come into their football club at the moment, because I think when you look at kind of since he's been at the football club, it's kind of a situation where they've seen 2 relegations, and it's a situation where a club in Newcastle's size needs to be up at the top of English football. I think if you look at the way Leicester City are run at the moment, that's where Newcastle should be. When you really think about it, that's where Newcastle should be in terms of stature, in terms of the way their football club should be in terms of size of football club. So it'd be interesting to see kind of where this takeover, if it does materialize, where it goes, and kind of Newcastle kind of being back up top tier of the table. Because a couple of years ago when you had Rafa Benitez, I thought it was becoming stable, and so you're getting back up there. So it'd be very interesting to see kind of what happens in the next kind of couple of months, and hopefully for your sake, Mike Ashley leaves sooner rather than later.
We need him gone. It's as simple as that. We need him out of the club because, as I've talked about, we were traveling over Europe and fighting at the top end of the table against you guys. Ultimately, in the 90s, early 2000s. But ever since Mike Ashley's taken over the club, we've gone backwards. We have literally, and I've said it for a while now, we have literally just swapped places with Tottenham. Where Tottenham were in the early 2000s is exactly where we are now. Sort of like fighting relegation, mid-table at best, not really going anywhere. Whereas we were up there challenging top 5, top 6, top 4. And we've literally swapped places. And, we as fans have had enough now. We want to swap back. We want to be back up there challenging. And look, I don't even think it's that. I mean, we have that stigma attached to it where like everyone thinks that we demand to be up there. We don't. We just demand to be in a position where we're not worrying about where our 40 points are going to come from every season. We are worried. We are worried season after season. The way we look at our fixtures, where we're going to get our 3 points from. We're just sick and tired of that now. We just want to be in a position where we are confident that we're first and foremost going to stay in the league. And then secondly, can we push the top half? Then it's a case of, can we push those European teams? It goes in 3 stages, but we're at stage 0 right now, where it's just a case of, where are our points coming from week to week?
Yeah, and I think that's, I suppose, I said, it may be just a gradual process of kind of rebuilding and kind of moving forward. But look, if you get that new ownership in, I dare to say within 2-3 years, you'll be in a stable position where you don't have to worry about the 40 points every season. It's just like, let's make a progression to top 10, then let's make the progression to Europa League, and then dare say, if you do get the right type of owners in, that maybe one day you're back pushing top 4. I think that's something that would be a goal if Newcastle do get new ownership in. Like, that's obviously probably a long-term goal, because nothing happens overnight, not unless it's an anomaly like the way Leicester did when they won the league, and then the owners then really pushed everything behind that. They wanted to stay up there. So I think, for your sake anyway, because I know Callum knows my views on our ownership. I don't agree with it most of the time, but I think I never like to see a club ran into the ground. I never like to see that, because at the end of the day, football is for the fans, and I think you have to look at it with the perspective that all the traditional clubs should be still fighting at the top regardless. So definitely Newcastle United, I'd like to see them go back in amongst things in the Premier League. Martin, just going to come to yourself. You were obviously on our transfer kind of special show a couple of weeks ago, and there was also the Premier League prediction show at the same time. You spoke about bringing in certain players. You had the likes of Joe Willock was just after coming in at that time. Very good player for you last season, very productive in midfield. Since then, obviously, the season has kind of started and it's kind of been up and down already. Where are you in terms of expectations for this season now, considering what's after happening in the window and kind of where you think Newcastle can really go? Because obviously Steve Bruce is a man who is under pressure at the moment. Obviously because the results last season, didn't go his way for large parts, but he managed to keep you up. Where are you sitting on the expectation level this season?
I think, to be fair, it's fairly low. And I'm sure myself and Pete are probably much the same. Squad wise, there's enough there. We've got enough good players to be able to represent ourselves well. The problem for us is we have, and I know you guys are obviously there. We were talking pre-coming on air. There's obviously a Manchester United piece of love and loyalty to Brucey, but for us as Newcastle fans, we see a manager that's failed at every club he's been to. He got sacked from Villa. He got sacked from Sunderland. He got sacked or walked from Hull because he didn't get signings. And, the last 2 seasons we've had have been bang average. And as Pete said, the first thing us guys on Loaded Mag do when the fixtures come out is we look at the fixtures and go, okay, well, we're not going to get nothing there. We're not going to get nothing there. There's probably 6 games there that we're going to struggle if we're lucky. We should get 3 there, but it depends which Newcastle turns up. So I think, squad-wise, we've got good enough players in the likes of Wilson, Joe Willock, ASM, Almiron. We've got decent enough defenders. What we lack and Pete will probably add to this, but defensively, we've been screaming out for a defender with a bit of athleticism about him, a bit of pace, strong in the air. We've got we struggle for leadership in that team. I would be very, very critical of Jamal Lascelles. When Rafa was there, he guided Jamal Lascelles, and we thought we really had a player. But when Rafa obviously went and Bruce came in, Lascelles has regressed, as have a number of players that we have. Almiron came in, first game he played, ran through defenses, chipped the ball, hit the bar, should have scored on his debut. But since then, as a Newcastle fan, we're looking at the Newcastle team and going, where's he play? Where do we put him? And, we constantly tinker with formations. I think over 3 games so far this season, we've obviously, 2 losses and a draw. St. James's Park, Bruce got away with a lot last year because St. James's Park was empty and it was on the TV. Now that fans are back in St. James's Park, we've got to run, I think, the next 6 games. We've got you guys at the weekend. We've got Leeds. I think we've got Leicester and a few others. We've potentially Wolves in there. We've potentially got 6 games that I look at those 6 fixtures and go, we're not going to, we're chance to get nothing here out of 6. So we could be then at a point where we'll be 10 games in and we'll have a point. We've got an absolutely atrocious run of fixtures in December, where we play City, United, Chelsea, all the big teams within the space of about 6 weeks of each other. I'm running through. And if I said to the guys jokingly on our chat the other day, if we're still struggling and we get to those set of fixtures in December, I think we're down by January because there'll be no recovery. Yeah, I really think Wilson's out injured now. Doesn't look like he's going to be available for the next 5-6 games. That's our goal threat gone. Is Joe Willock going to give us the same goal ratio that he gave us at the end of last season? He's a great player, but is he going to turn us a goal a game? No, he's not. Great young player, but again, positional wise, absolutely on Sunday when we play Man United, Bruce is going to park the bus. It'll be 5 at the back with 2 wing backs who ultimately are wingers who can't defend. Great going forward, but can't defend. So tactically, I'm sure Ollie will have done his homework. All he's got to do is press those 2 wingers, and you lads will get in behind us every single attack you come down a wing with, in particular on the left-hand side. So it is concerning, and I think just with, Steve, it's even, Pete will tell you, it's even horrible watching Steve Bruce do in the post-match and pre-match comments because he bigs up the other team, which I'm absolutely sure he will do with Manchester United on Sunday. And for me as a fan, I hate seeing that. I don't want him talking up Man United. I want him to talk up Newcastle. I want him to say how good we can be and we're going to go give it a go and we're going to win. But then you see the team formation and it's 5-2-3-1 and you're going, fuck me. And it's just, it is really, really not heartbreaking, but it is kind of soul destroying because you've got nothing to look forward to. And then you look at this fixture. And I know you guys go, we talk about ownership, Glazers and that. But like as Newcastle fans, we look at the Glazers and go, hang on a minute. You just got Ronaldo. How can you be moaning about your ownership? Like, hang on. Have a look at Mike Ashley. Like,
it's more than transfers. I think with the Glazers and Mike Ashley, they're very similar in a lot of ways, but they're different as well. Like, the way the Glazers, they actually don't pump money into Manchester United. Any transfers we do is from money we generate through our football club.
That is our issue. That is our issue with Ashley because I would, and we've had numerous discussions. I would hold my hat off and go, listen, do you know what? As a business model, he took Newcastle from being a club that was spending stupid money on wages and transfers and in debt to a very stable business model. But last season, between TV revenue, player sales, other bits and pieces, there's best parts of 150 million there. We bought in Joe Willock, 22 million, 21, 22-year-old kid, English, 22 million was a good deal. I think we pulled Arsenal's shorts down, to be honest. But we're looking at it and we're going, okay, like where's the other 100 million, Mike? Where's the money? And he's not, the spiel that the ownership will give us is, whatever the club makes will be reinvested. If we've seen pictures this week where we've got two guys with a jet wash washing the roof because the stadium is in disrepair, and it's just, at what point does it change? And if we, as a fan base, do we, as Pete said, do we have anything? And it's not that we want to be going out there and winning the league. Obviously, that would be great. But we look at people like Leicester, even Brighton and Hove Albion this week, looking at their new training facilities, and we can't even compete with that. As a club with a 52,000 week in, week out, and a massive fan base, and you're just going, it's horrendous to be a fan at the minute. It's tough.
It's frustrating. Martin made a good point about the training ground, Brighton's training ground. I had a watch of that video, and me living in Leicester, I saw Leicester's unveiling of their state-of-the-art new training ground as well. It's one of the best in Europe. I think Brighton's is pretty close to that as well. And it all it does as Newcastle fans is just downheartens us big time, because we had a training ground mapped out. It was designed, it was planned, it's signed off effectively, and the money was there to be spent. And then all of a sudden, the money just gets pulled, and the project gets pulled, and it's done. We get no explanation why, no reasoning why, and it's like, why is it that we can't even get a new training ground? A training ground is the reason why Luka Modric went to Tottenham Hotspur instead of Newcastle United, because their training ground at that point in time, before they got their new one, was considerably better than ours. And he was sold on the fact that what's his training day today, he's going to have better facilities at Tottenham than Newcastle. But yeah, we've got an ownership that says, the training ground doesn't matter the way it looks, the facilities don't matter, it doesn't mean anything. Well, it certainly did to Luka Modric, and you look at how he went on and how his career developed off the back of that, and how we missed out on him for the best part of 500,000 difference, just because they had better facilities than us. And it's just frustrating. It's frustrating for us Newcastle fans. Now, I understand from a Man United point of view. I've got two friends in Leicester that have had season tickets for 15 plus years at Man United, and they go every week, home and away, travel Europe, they do the lot. And I know from the model that Man United had, that your success ultimately was built on, or your financial success was built on trophies, on the fact that you won trophies accumulated over the course of 10, 12 years. The winning bonuses and the financial windfall that comes with that, you guys were self-sustained. You earned that money, and the fact that you went out there and bought the best players that were out there at the time, apart from Alan Shearer, I might add. But you went out and brought the best players that were out there across England and Europe for so many years. To have then an owner come in and basically stick a load of money against the club for his own benefit, and stick you guys in the best part of £500 million worth of debt that you're now still in so many years later. So I can understand your frustration, but look, I tell you what, if I had the opportunity of deciding which one I'd rather have the Glazers. I've got to be honest.
I'm not going to comment on the Glazers, to be honest, because look, I've done it so much on this podcast. I think my viewers are probably getting sick to the teeth of me talking about them, to be completely honest. I'll probably get sick on Twitter later on.
We'll discuss it in an hour.
Definitely, 100%. But Callum, I'm going to come to you just briefly as well on the situation in Newcastle in terms of the last couple of years, especially under Bruce, because obviously we've the Man United link with Steve Bruce, obviously Premier League winning captain in their football club. What's your take on their position as a football club at the moment, and kind of what their, I suppose, tenure is under Steve Bruce? Kind of where do you think it's going at the moment?
In terms of Steve Bruce, obviously he's got the Manchester United link. I think the only thing that keeps Steve Bruce at Newcastle is the fact that I think he knows he wouldn't get another Premier League job. I think this is it for him. I think you hear a lot of the time people saying they feel sorry for Steve Bruce, and I can understand that to an extent. If you're a neutral, of course, not a Newcastle fan, because the football is turgid at times, or most of the time. But with Steve Bruce, I think when you've managed the club's fiercest rivals, it's a very hard task to convince people and get them on side. I know Mark Hughes went and managed Manchester City. We know how that worked out. I think it's a brave thing to do, but I also think it's a stupid thing to do in the sense that Bruce is on a hiding to nothing with Newcastle. And the thing that frustrates me, as I say, from the outside looking in, is that Mike Ashley, with Alan Pardew as well, seems to like hiring a manager that rubs the fans up the wrong way. And I just don't understand it. I think if you're looking at Steve and what he's achieving at Newcastle at the moment, it's not rocket science to say that. I think if you were to get a better coach in, he would get more out of the players. I think the guys I think you'll agree, but when Graham Jones came in for the second half of last season, you started to notice, I would say, a slight difference at least before he came in, of course. And I think that sums it up. I think Newcastle need a fresh start. Obviously, Steve Bruce is in post, and I'm not going to say that they should sack him tomorrow or anything silly, but if he isn't producing the results, and the guys have touched on the next 5 or 6 games being crucial with that run obviously coming up in December, then if he's not the guy who's going to turn that around, I hope they act proactively and they give someone a fair chance at the job rather than changing in late January when the team's already doomed. Do you think of that infamous Derby season when they brought in, I think it was Paul Jewell, when they were as good as gone, and you think to yourself, what's the point of bringing in a manager now? You should have done that 3 months ago. So I can understand why people on the outside looking in might feel sorry for Steve Bruce, but as I say, from my perspective, taking that job on was always a massive gamble. I don't think the football's been exciting at all. St Maximin for me reminds me of Letitia at Southampton, in the sense that the tactic a lot of the time was probably a case of get him the ball, he'll make something happen, and he more often than not does. But there's only so long that can be successful for before the better teams just double up on him or even put 3 men on him, because they know if they nullify him, they're going to nullify the threat. And with Callum Wilson being out, I think that's going to be the case for Newcastle for the next 5 or 6 games, because St Maximin can make anything happen on his own. Take him out the game, Wilson not playing, it's asking a lot, as Martin said, of Joe Willock to get the goals for them. And as I say, I like Newcastle as a club. I've got a big cousin Ross, who is a Newcastle fan, having worked down south, and he always talks about the Bobby Robson era when Newcastle were playing in the Champions League, when Newcastle were a team that had good young players coming through. Obviously, you go back to the first reign of Kevin Keegan before that, going for league titles, the entertainers. They're a club with a lot of history and a lot of prestige, even within the sort of current Premier League era. It's just a shame that Mike Ashley is sort of starving the club of the funding that they need to be competitive, because with 52,000 fans at every single game, with the Premier League TV money, I think they should be more ambitious. And the fact they've got maybe Steve Bruce in charge at the moment and they took so long to sign Joe Willock just sums up where Mike Ashley's at. He's got no interest in investing heavily in the team. As the guys have said, they've seen it with their own eyes. He's got no real interest in investing in the stadium. And it's one of those that Newcastle are just treading water and passing time until they can get a new owner. And I hope for the fans that they can get one as soon as possible, because it's grim to watch, even from the outside looking in, because the club deserves far more.
Yeah, definitely. I second that. And the fan base definitely deserves a lot more, because they've been loyal through thick and thin, as I said earlier on. And I think it's just a case now where sooner Mike Ashley gets out of the football club, I think, Joe, the grass will be greener, 100%. I think that goes without saying. I think once he leaves and someone once a competent owner comes in, then I think Newcastle can definitely push forward and definitely get back into at least the top 10 in the league. Because let's face it, at the moment, if you look from 1 to let's say 8 this season at least, and that's not including Arsenal, all the teams are very strong. It's going to take a lot of money and a lot of resources, a lot of scouting, and a lot of blood and through the academies to break that top 8 in the league. So I think for Newcastle, if they get a new owner in and get a structure in place, and they do well over a 5-year period, they can definitely get back in amongst things in the league. But again, it just depends on what the ambition is of, let's say, said new owner when they do come in. Callum, I'm going to turn to you just on this next topic, because look, if you haven't been on social media, if you've been living under a rock, a certain Portuguese lad returned to Manchester a couple of weeks ago, and Cristiano Ronaldo. Simple question I'm just going to ask you first before we get into what this signing can mean and stuff like that. Where were you? What were you doing? when the news broke and that Cristiano Ronaldo was coming home to Old Trafford?
Before the news broke, Keane, to be honest with you, obviously there was the links with City. There was mock-ups of him appearing in that blue shirt, and I'll be honest with you, they made me feel very uneasy. I didn't really know how to react to that, and I'd sort of tried to say to myself that I'm not interested. I'll shut off. He was a great player for United, but I'm just going to shut off. If he goes to City, I'm going to be gutted. I'll move on. But when that sort of hectic 24 hours started, I was at home, and I remember on that morning, I think it was Rio Ferdinand put out a cryptic sort of gif at first. And I remember a few people saying, is this linked to Ronaldo? And I'd actually said, to be fair, I'm not saying I'm Mystic Meg or anything, but I had said that in the week that he was linked to City, there is no way that those links to City are there and United aren't going to try and at least talk to him, because there was no way United were going to give anyone a free run if it was evident that he was seriously going to move. So when he put that out in the morning, then for me it all changed when Ollie spoke. You could just tell he knows we're here. It just to the air, it's as if he couldn't hold it in, that smile. And then when you heard basically the deal is done, and obviously United put it out online, it was like a flashback. Obviously, I know he's not going to be the same player as he was in 2008, 2009. No, everyone knows that. He's completely changed his game. He's a penalty box player now. He scores goals in and around the box. For Juventus last season, he scored 1 goal outside the box. So he's a penalty box striker who delivers. You saw that, unfortunately, Keane, hate to mention it, against Ireland last week. So apologies for mentioning that. But United are getting a player, Keane, that can deliver. Gary Neville said in Monday Night Football on Sky, I think 2 weeks ago, if United sign someone like Harry Kane who can score 25, maybe 30 goals, they could get in the late 80s, early 90s in points and challenge. I think Ronaldo delivers that level of goal tally for United crucially if he gets the service. You think of the assists that Jadon Sancho was able to get in the Bundesliga at Borussia Dortmund. Of course, obviously, even though he's English, he's coming back to the Premier League. He's not played in it consistently in his career, so he is maybe going to take 4, 5, 6 games to adapt. Hopefully not, but you would think he might. But I think with the likes of him feeding Ronaldo, Fernandes, his compatriot, feeding him as well, I just think he will score. I think he'll score at least 15 goals in the Premier League for United. I'm not going to go outlandish and say he's going to score 25, 30, 40. I think he'll score at least 15 goals. And obviously, as you know, speaking to Phil Brown and Beyond the Pitch, the crucial thing for United is, and I don't mean this to be patronising, Ronaldo's not been brought in to score 2 goals at home against Norwich. He's not been brought in to score the 3rd goal in a 3-1 or 3-2 victory away at Brentford. He needs to make the impact in the big games against your Liverpools, against your Chelseas, against your Cities. Of course, against the rest of the league, he has to be fit and firing and scoring those games too. But he has to make a difference in those big games. History suggests that he will make a difference in those big games. You think of his record in the Champions League with Real Madrid. He scored some big goals with Juventus, even though they didn't go on to win the tournament against some big clubs. And that's what he's been brought in for. And I think you would be a brave person to write him off scoring goals in the Premier League. A lot of people talk about the physicality in the Premier League as if Ronaldo or some of these top-level players can't compete. If I'm being brutally honest, when you look at teams like Burnley, I admire Sean Dyche and what he's doing there, but you can't seriously say to me that Burnley are an outstanding team that would finish top 10 in La Liga or Serie A. I think sometimes people get a bit carried away with the level of certain teams in the Premier League, particularly closer to the bottom. I think every team close to the bottom has maybe 1 or 2 talented players that could play above their level that maybe teams in Italy and Spain's lower reaches maybe couldn't. Maybe they've just got more of a team ethic, whereas there's certain players and even maybe Norwich, when they came up last time, they had Buendia, who's obviously went on to Aston Villa, was linked with Arsenal. Even the teams at the very bottom have a player or 2 that can maybe shine, but as I say, for me, he'll make a difference, and I expect him to get started against Newcastle, unfortunately for Pete and Martin.
I have him backed first goal score 2-1 on my accumulator for Saturday. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that comes true. But in terms of my thoughts on his return, like, look, growing up for me, being a Man United fan, I was brought up on Rooney and Ronaldo. Like, they were my two favorite players. Obviously, growing up, obviously being named after Roy Keane as well. No coincidence that I'd have an affection for Roy Keane as well. But when the news broke that he was going to Man City, I was like heartbroken. I'm not going to lie. I was really heartbroken thinking like this proper portrayal. Like when he went to Real Madrid, I kind of understood years ago. Like I was heartbroken then, but I was like, he's from Portugal. Any players from Portugal or Brazil or Argentina, any of these countries, their dream is to go on and play for Real Madrid or Barcelona. So at the time, I kind of realised, look, he gave Fergie the extra year that time. Now, some of the comments that are made towards the end, being a slave in that's neither here or there at this stage, because he gave us another league title that year when he wanted to move the year before. But to see him come back towards the twilight of his career, I think it's romantic in a way, because he could have rode off into the sunset at 36 years of age. So he could have went to MLS. He could have went to League One. No disrespect to the league, but it's not as competitive as the Premier League. The Premier League is the best league in the world, most competitive league in the world. He's coming to a Manchester United team who are nearly the finished article. They're not the finished article yet. There's still maybe one or two players who need to come in to really compete in Manchester City and be a better team than Manchester City and Chelsea. But we're nearly there. We're just about there. Could Ronaldo be that, Joe, I suppose, piece of the jigsaw? Because people can talk about Man United's midfield and people talk about that's the final piece of the jigsaw. But I kind of look at this Ronaldo sign kind of the same way Robin Van Persie when he came in 2012. Like everyone was talking about, United need that creative midfield player. United need to buy that defensive midfield player, Paul Scholes and Carrick. They're kind of coming towards the end of their time. But United went down and got a marksman in Robin Van Persie and won the league title. Now, I'm not saying that United are going to win the league now. I'm not saying that at all, because I know people have clipped this up and take it out of context. But what I will say is he's a player who can elevate players around him to make them better and get them to that next level. Like when you look when Van Persie came in, he was that talisman. He scored a whole bag full of goals and won Ferguson league title. When you look at it, when you face it, when you look at that squad United had in 2012-13, it's probably United's worst ever team that ever won a league title in terms of level of talent pool. It was a load of players coming towards the end of their time, but Van Persie really was that kind of talisman that kind of dragged United to that league title that season. Look at Ronaldo coming in now. You have players like Bruno Fernandes there in their prime who broke all sorts of records last season. You have Paul Pogba there. If you look at this last 18 months, it's probably his most consistent period as a Manchester United player. You have Marcus Rashford last season when he was coming through an injury kind of problem that he was still producing numbers that he was producing. You have a young player like Mason Greenwood who I believe is going to break Wayne Rooney's goal scoring record. I strongly do believe that at a young age he's scoring goals and he's showing level of maturity in his game that that not many players at his age do. And then you have a player like Raphael Varane coming in, who's going to be, that kind of partner of Harry Maguire that we've all been crying out for since Maguire signed. So I think Cristiano Ronaldo's coming into a team that's nearly there. And it's just a case now where, you look at the situation with Ronaldo, can he be that kind of shining light and be that kind of leader in the dressing room that drags us to another league title, or at least drags us to a trophy or two this season? So I think that's very important, especially this third season for Solskjaer, is that we win a trophy, because the progress has been very good. Coming third in his first full season, second in his second full season, natural progression in the circle of life would say the next step is league title. But it's the Premier League. It's the most competitive league in the world. You have to be realistic. Chelsea have bought well. City have just brought in Jack Grealish for 100 million. Van Dijk is back for Liverpool. It is kind of a very competitive league at this moment in time, and you have to be realistic with expectations. But when you have a player like Cristiano Ronaldo, anything's possible. Just to get kind of the outside point of view on this Ronaldo signing. Pete, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on kind of him coming back at this stage of his career? Obviously being 36. Again, he's won everything that there is to win the game. Think it could have been easy for him just to say, right, let's go to MLS, let's go to China, let's go to League One, and maybe get decent wages, but not be kind of in kind of the competitive league?
Well, first things first. I don't have many players that I look up to in football. Alan Shearer's one. David Beckham's another. Ronaldinho's one. But no other for me than Cristiano Ronaldo. He's my idol. I've followed his career since the first day he played for Man United. and I followed his career, every club that he's been at. He is, for me, the best player that's ever played football. And that's my opinion. I think there is no one that works harder than him. There is no one that is determined as him to achieve. There is no one that is as motivated as he is. Some people may have more natural talent, but nobody works harder than him. So for me personally,
I will come to this later, Dylan.
Sorry?
I was going to come to that comment later on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see him play. Now, you made a point earlier about Ronaldo not coming in to score a couple of goals against Norwich or Brentford's or your Palaces or whoever, but I think he has been brought in for that. Because if you look at your results of where you've slipped in previous seasons, it is against those type of teams. You go back to Crystal Palace at home last season, you go back to the Aston Villas, you go back to those type of teams that really you should be putting the sword to. You go back to, your previous game against Southampton away, where really you should have tore them apart. They've not got a great record. And you've slipped up against those teams. Cristiano Ronaldo makes the difference. He puts those teams to the sword. He ensures that you get 3 points. He ensures it's not a tough game. He ensures that it's not on a knife edge. And he makes it comfortable for you as a team. And that's what he did under his first stint at Man United. And I believe that's what he will do again. And that's where he gets his goals. People say that he gets his goals against the lower teams. Yes, because he ends the lower team games as a contest, because he's a significantly, supremely better player than anybody else on the pitch. And it's just simple as that. People will argue that he doesn't do as much outside the box now, but the guy's 36. He's been in the game long enough. He's smart enough now to be in a position to know where he needs to be in order to make the difference in the game. He doesn't need to run miles and miles and miles like some of the players you see nowadays. Bruno Fernandes covers every blade of grass on the pitch. He's 26, 27 years old. Ronaldo doesn't need to do that. He just needs to pick where he needs to be and get the big moments, just like he did for Portugal against Republic of Ireland in midweek. And he did nothing. He did nothing for the whole game, but he pops up with 2 moments. Bang! He wins the game. He gets the plaudits. He is the difference maker, and he will be exactly that for Man United this season. And I see him getting 15 to 20 goals in the season. The only question mark I've got, well, there's 2 question marks. The only question mark I've got about Ronaldo is, in fact, it's for your front line. Is that you've got the guy that can get you the goals, but the problem is, and it's the same with Greenwood, and it's the same with Martial, and it's the same with Rashford, is that they all can get you goals, but I find when I watch you guys play that you've never ever got anyone central. So you'll get wide, you'll get balls into the box, but there's never anyone there, because if Greenwood's the furthest man forward, he tends to be out wide when the ball's in the box. When Rashford's the furthest man forward, he's usually out wide when it comes into the box. Ronaldo needs to be that box player. And he likes to play wide too, but he's going to have to play predominantly as a frontline striker. And I think that's why Cavani had such a great season for you guys, because he's a box striker. When the ball gets into the box, he's there. You look at the game against Southampton when you came back to win, I think 3-2 last season. Yeah. He was the difference.
Tottenham game as well. The Tottenham game, his movement was unbelievable.
Exactly. He was the difference maker. So that's the question mark I have about your front line. Okay, the second question mark is that you made a great point. The team that Van Persie was in that won the league that season was probably one of your worst squads that was assembled. But the difference is he had the best manager that's ever lived in Sir Alex Ferguson to make that happen. For me, this squad of players is significantly better than that squad that you had in that, I think, 2012 season it was, that Robin Van Persie effectively won the league for you. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to step up now. He has to step up and win you a title or any trophy, European or domestic. If he doesn't win anything this season, his position as manager, regardless of what contract he signed, regardless of what the players and the fans think of him, is got to be up for question, because you've significantly improved this team. There's only probably a defensive midfielder away from being a complete side, but this side should challenge. And if it doesn't win anything, serious question marks needed to be asked. So they're my 2 question marks. The frontline striker, who's the box man? Who's the box striker? And the second of is, can Ole Gunnar Solskjaer produce the same magic that Sir Alex Ferguson had?
Yeah, and it's a very good point. And I think when you look at Ronaldo's role, like I think at Juventus, there is times, yes, he'd drift out wide, but for the large part, he was always kind of in and around the box and scoring goals. I think when you look at our front three, anyway, in general, they always interchange positions. They always either drift wide, or one of them can play central, one of them can drift out. Like, for example, with the front three, I'm expecting to start on Saturday, and I'm going to get to everyone on their lineups in a minute, is Greenwood, Pogba, and Ronaldo. That's probably going to be Man United's lineup coming into the weekend, depending on the fitness of Sancho. We don't know what's going to happen there yet. But it is a very interesting question. But look, I understand Martin does have to jump off as well, so I'll give you my
2 cents worth on Ronaldo. Absolutely amazing physique. I wish I had that when I was 36. But I hope his swan song, in particular the weekend, is a bit like Andy Carroll's, and that he doesn't do anything after the 2 games against us. I don't really give a shit. But anyway, we'll talk a bit more about Ronaldo just after 8 o'clock on Loaded Mag. Boys, I've got to run. I've got a carpenter downstairs waiting to sort out my man shed. But I'll see you on 8 o'clock. Pete, if I'm running slightly late, just kick off and I'll jump on.
No worries.
All right. Talk to you in a bit, guys.
Yep. But yeah, like, look, I think with the movement there's like Greenwood can slot in through the middle, Rashford can play through the middle, Sancho can interchange positions, and we've Martial there. Like, we're spoiled for choice up front. I think when you just look at Ronaldo, I think he will, like, he's there to play as a striker. He will be that number 9, and he will score goals. I just think at the moment, it just depends on what setup we have, who's in midfield, who's out wide. That'll depend on whether he needs to drift out, and whether these other players kind of I suppose run diagonal, come in centrally, and tear defenses apart. But again, this is where Ollie this season, I believe last season he didn't use much rotation because if we be brutal about it, he didn't have the options. Martial was out of form. He was injured quite a lot last year. He didn't have Jesse Lingard for the second half of last season. He was a player who was out of West Ham. Marcus Rashford was struggling for injury as well. So, like, I think when you look at rotation, Ollie didn't have much choice. This year he does. Like, this year is a lot different. He has, Sancho, Rashford, Cavani, Martial. He has Ronaldo. Do you know what I mean? He has riches there, and it will allow him to adapt setups. And again, it will allow us to adapt to different styles of play, like teams who sit back deep, teams who push a high line. We'll have, in my opinion, answers for all different types of setups. And that's exciting as a Man United fan. And that's what Callum touched on earlier, in terms of we're in a good place and we can actually have confidence in whatever lineup we put out, that we'll be competitive. Whereas last year, we did finish second and we got to Europa League final, but there was times where if we did rotate a couple of players, you're kind of like, we might be in for a tough day. Whereas today, now it's kind of like, I'm going into Saturday, I know we're missing a couple of players, and Dylan has a comment in there about who's going to play central midfield. I'm happy, I'm content in terms of our options. And Ollie's done a great job in clearing out players who weren't good enough and bringing in players who are good enough and can meet that Manchester United standard. And that's something he's done very well. His recruitment strategy has been very good. I think you look at the structure of Man United's academy in the last couple of years, in the last, say, 5 years, has been nothing short of exceptional. So I think he's doing a very good job in that respect. And I think when you look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he has the options now, and he's done very well to progress the team from where it was from what Mourinho left us with. I think he needs to be commended for that. But now is the time where you have the players, you have the progression. I know we're short of midfielder, but you'd still expect to be thereabouts come the end of April and May, and definitely win a domestic trophy, and definitely get a run in the Champions League. Because you look at the group we have, and you look at previous years, Chelsea's won the Champions League, and they didn't have the best squad last season. They really and truly didn't. But Thomas Tuchel tactically won the Champions League for him due to his tactical nous. So definitely it's an exciting time to be a Man United fan. But look, it's all well and good putting theory. Now you have to put it into practice. And I think that's where these next couple of months will be very interesting as United fans and for just fans in general, because the Premier League's the best, as I said, best league in the world, and it's definitely it's an exciting time to be a football fan. Not unless you're an Arsenal fan at the moment; it must be very grim. But anyway, getting into the game of the weekend, and because obviously, look, there's a lot of question marks on both sides in terms of starting 11s and in terms of who's going to play. Because obviously Newcastle have their injury issues. Man United, obviously we have the issue of Fred and the COVID-19 restrictions, as well, kind of the situation that's happening with Brazil there, which has just been cast upon not just United but many different Premier League sides as well. So I'm going to come to you first, Pete, in terms of your starting 11 for the opposition. Who do you believe is going to start? What formation is going to play, and how do you think, what's your setup going to be, and what way you're going to approach the game?
Well, I think it's quite easy for me for two reasons. One, we haven't got a huge pool of choices due to some injuries. So the players pretty much in one sense pick itself. And the second reason is Bruce is the type of manager to not change his system or his lineup, no matter what result or how we're playing. He just sticks to his guns. He always has done since he's been at the club, and I don't see it changing, or I'd be very shocked if it changed come Saturday. So obviously we've got our situation where Dubravka is out long term, probably until maybe October, and although he's back in training, Carl Darlow is still really suffering from COVID. I think he was in hospital for a period of time. He lost at least 2.5 stone during that period, so he's having to be built back up, as if like he's doing his pre-season right from the beginning again, and then some. So Freddie Woodman, who hasn't had a bad start, although he's conceded 8 goals, it might seem worse on paper than what it has been. He's been incredibly unlucky. He's not had a bad start to his life as a first choice goalkeeper. So he'll start in goal. The only thing I worry about is that he doesn't come off his line. So set pieces, corners, free kicks, the likes of Harry Maguire, Varane, Ronaldo, Cavani, players like that could really cause us some problems in the air. But as a shot stopper, he's one of the best around. So he'll start in goal for me. We'll go with the back three. So I think I'll have the captain, Lascelles, who Martin touched on. Martin's not a big fan of Lascelles, and he's really regressed in the last couple of years as a player. For someone that was very close to being in the England squad under Gareth Southgate before the 2018 World Cup, has completely just disappeared off the face of the earth in terms of being at that sort of elite level. But he'll start because he's the captain. Either side of him, I'm hoping. Now he's been in training for a little bit, Paul Dummett will come back in. Now, Paul Dummett is a defender. He knows how to defend. He's a last-ditch defender. His positional play is good. He's built for playing away days. So hopefully he'll come on the left of Lascelles. And on the right, it'll be a toss-up between Federico Fernandez and Fabian Schär. And I believe he'll probably go...
Schär has a knack of scoring set pieces. That's where I worry.
He does, but the problem is that he's not a natural defender. Now, Bruce, I imagine Bruce's mindset, or it should be his mindset, is that we're going to be under the cosh for long parts of the game. So I think he'll probably go more so with the experience and the defensive mindset of Federico Fernandez on the right side of Jamal Lascelles. But you could argue that, Schär is our ball-playing defender. He can bring the ball out and keep possession and keep things ticking over. He can play a long ball to get us up the pitch. So there's an argument for either of them, but I personally think he's going to go with Federico Fernandez because that's normally what he's gone for. And Schär's been on the bench a little bit this season too. So it then goes to the wing-backs. Now, Jacob Murphy will start on the right-hand side purely because he doesn't like Manquillo. Because Manquillo has still refused to learn English, even though he's been in the country what seems like 10 years. He still doesn't learn English, and he's still refusing to learn English, although he's probably a better right wing back defensively. Jacob Murphy is incredibly quick and deceptively quick with the ball. And he's scored a couple of goals for us over the course of pre-season and this season as well. So he'll be our danger man on the right wing back. He likes to push teams back. So when you've got Shaw bombing down the left-hand side, which I imagine is going to be for you, on the right-hand side throughs, you've got Jake Murphy that equally likes to attack that way. So that's going to be an interesting battle. Left-hand side, if it was me, I'd be going Jamal Lewis, ex-Norwich left wing-back who Liverpool tried to sign and didn't stump up enough money. But I think he's going to go Matt Ritchie because of experience. Now, that's where I think we're going to be exposed, because defensively, he's dreadful. He's a leader. He works hard. He's good at set pieces and deliveries. But defensively, he's out of position all the time. And I think that's where you're going to get a lot of your joy.
He's out of position. Like Mason Greenwood was probably most likely to play on that right-hand side. If he pushes up a bit too much, he could be left exposed. So I'd probably look for Lewis. Probably start if I was a Newcastle fan, but
I would start him because as an athlete, he was during pre-season. Put it this way, he was off the charts in terms of his physical attributes and what he was producing in pre-season. He was better than miles better than any other player during pre-season with his running ability. He was performing as a supreme athlete, but yet he's not played hardly anything at all this season. He's better defensive minded. He's faster. He's quicker. He's got just as good a delivery. Why he's not playing is because he's not got that leadership that Ritchie has. But Ritchie does cause us problems. So it'll be interesting what he decides. But I personally think he's going to go with Ritchie as a left wing back. And then you've got your conundrum in terms of our three centre midfielders. Shelby, I think, is back in training, but I'm not sure if he's going to be ready for the game on Saturday. I think he's going to go with Isaac Hayden. He's going to go with... Well, we're in a bit of a pickle as well because Miguel Almiron won't be able to play either. Now, he didn't travel to South America, but Paraguay properly kicked off because we didn't allow him to travel for his international game, and have now put an official complaint in to FIFA and requested that he doesn't play this weekend. And I think it's been granted. So I don't think he can play at the weekend, even though he didn't travel to South America, because they were clearly annoyed at the fact that we refused him to travel over there, which would have meant he would have missed 2 games through quarantine. So I don't think he's going to play. Now, we've got Ryan Fraser out as well. He was in a protected boot, got released early from Scotland. So they're the 2 players that you would probably consider. And now they're both out. So you've got Sean Longstaff, Isaac Hayden, and Joe Willock, I think, will be our midfield 3. There's Joe Willock. He'll arrive late. He'll try and nick a goal. But I think defensively, we're going to get caught out time and time again by the likes of Fernandes and Pogba. So I am really, really worried about that midfield 3 because they don't communicate. They are literally playing their own individual game. And I worry about that. And then that leaves the top 2. And obviously Callum Wilson, we don't know. We've been told by the local journalist, that there's a concern that he's going to be out for a number of weeks. The club's not said anything. Bruce has not said anything. Everyone's hanging on his press conference tomorrow for confirmation about Callum Wilson. There seems to be this thing that whenever Callum Wilson has potentially got an injury, the club don't say anything about it. Any other player, they'll tell us. They don't tell us about Callum Wilson because I think they realise how important he is to us. And they also realise that we've been calling for us to get a backup for him because we know his injury record is not great. And they know then that we point the finger at them as to say, why haven't you got a replacement? So we'll find out a little bit about Callum Wilson tomorrow. But if he's not fit, I think it'll be Joe Linton and Alan St-Maximin up front. So I think that'll be our team. Unfortunately, I just don't think we'll lay a glove on you. I think we'll be lucky to get a goal. I think we'll be very, very lucky to get a shot on target. We'll be even luckier to get a goal. You know, I'm praying for a miracle here.
To be fair, even in previous seasons, you have scored goals at Old Trafford. Christmas 2019, you did score. I'm just saying this straight out. Thank Christ, Matty Longstaff isn't playing. He has 3 Newcastle goals and 2 of them are against United. So, from my personal point of view, I'm absolutely happy he's at loan. It is on loan at Aberdeen. Is that Callum?
Yeah,
he's on loan at Aberdeen. So, thank Christ he's there. But like, look, you have St. Maximum, you have the X Factor. I think that he's going to drift out left a lot. I think the battle between him and Aaron Wan-Bissaka could be very interesting. I think that'll be something to watch, this coming weekend. But yeah, look, we do struggle against teams that do sit back. So I wouldn't be saying that you're hoping for a miracle, because things have happened where teams have sat back and caught us with a set piece on the break. They've scored from long distance. It has happened. But look, I would be still quite confident in my point of view that we can still do a job, because the occasion, Rafael Varane's first start, Jadon Sancho's first start at Old Trafford, potentially, if he's fully fit, because obviously he had to come out of England duty. But it is a very exciting time. And it is, and as always, when Man United against Newcastle, it is a big game. So look, we dare to say, hopefully from our point of view, it's a successful day for us. Callum, I'm going to come to Dylan's comments. I'm going to get your starting 11 prediction for Saturday in terms of this game. Even Dylan, hope you're well. And he says, even gents, with Fred potentially missing out on Saturday due to COVID-19 restrictions, who do you think will play in central midfield and why? So Callum, on the back of that comment, going to give you the floor in terms of your full starting 11.
Just to address that comment very quickly, Keane, I think if McTominay was fit to start, then without question, even if Fred was fit, I think McTominay would be the first choice. I think we agree on that. I'm assuming McTominay's not going to be back. I'm assuming that's why Dylan's asking this question. Because as I say, I think if McTominay was fit, even if Fred was as well, that he would play. So in terms of the starting 11 that I'm going to go with, I'm going to assume McTominay is out, and I'm going to assume that Fred is out. And this is what I think Solskjaer will play. De Gea, I think, starts in goal for United. Back four picks itself. Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Maguire and Shaw. I think we would agree on that back five, Keane.
Yeah.
Holding midfielder. Discussed this with Phil Brown yesterday. You've got two options, realistically. Van de Beek or Matic. Against Paris Saint-Germain, as Phil said, last year he kept Matic and Van de Beek on the bench and risked Fred on a yellow card, which shows he probably didn't want to play either of them. There's been suggestions, obviously, Lindelof could be tried there in future. My honest opinion is, I think he'll play Matic. I do not think Van de Beek will start in that position for United. If there was a game to do it, I think this would be the game. But I think if McTominay's out and Fred is out, then I think Matic will come in. I think that's a certainty. I just see Ollie being a bit pragmatic and thinking, I've got Pogba and Bruno Fernandes ahead of whoever's in that holding role, and that's why I think he'll play Matic. Although, as Pete said, Newcastle's midfield is potentially going to be questionable for the game. So if there was ever a game that Van de Beek should start, it could be this one. But I think he'll play Matic. And then the front three, if I can speak, I think Greenwood will undoubtedly start on the right. Sancho, I think, will start on the left. And through the middle, I think will be Anthony Martial. Oh, it'll be Cristiano Ronaldo, of course. Of course it will. Cristiano Ronaldo will be through the middle.
Callum, you had me. Oh,
you had me as well.
If Martial makes the bench, he'll be surprised, considering obviously Cavani will be there as backup. He didn't go with Uruguay. I don't know if they've put a request in for him not to play, but no, in reality, as I say, Ronaldo's going to start. I think United have clearly been milking this situation even more than you, Keane, which is quite saying something.
Yeah, it's big time.
And I think that the video they put out today where he's on the pitch, he's saying I'm home into the camera. I don't think there's any doubts that Ronaldo starts. So as I say, the team for me, and I think Solskjaer will pick, will be De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Maguire, Shaw, Matic, Pogba, Bruno, Greenwood, Sancho and Ronaldo. If it was up to me, I would probably start Van de Beek. I think he's got to be given a chance to go and do something. If he's not playing well in the first 45, get him off and put Matic on, if that's the only two options you've realistically got in that position. But as I say, I think Ollie will start Matic.
Yeah, I virtually have the same lineup as you. I think I would start Matic anyway. For me, I don't think Donny's a 6, and I see so much social media hysteria that all of a sudden Donny van de Beek's a 6, even though he played most of his career as a number 10. So I don't understand that, but look, it is what it is. The only other thing I'd say, if Sancho isn't fully fit, because he obviously was left go from England, obviously due to fitness reasons, and it looks like he's trying to build back up his fitness. If Van de Beek isn't, sorry, Van de Beek's on my mind there. If Sancho isn't fit for Saturday, I'm going to throw a caveat out there. I'm not starting Anthony Martial on the left or Sancho if Sancho wasn't fit. I go Jesse Lingard. I would give Jesse Lingard a start off the left flank. I think he's someone who has a creative edge. He can score goals, and if you're talking about form at the minute, he's probably in better form than Martial at the minute. Like Martial in his first couple of games hasn't cut the mustard. And look,
do you
Lingard,
think there's any way you could be tempted to put Cavani and Ronaldo in the same team from the start? Maybe Ronaldo drifting in from left and Cavani through the middle, or vice versa. Do you think that could be a temptation in any way?
It could be. It really,
because
really
we're at home.
Because we're at home, he could do it.
You get away with it. It's the one game you get away with it because we defensively will sit deep, but we're not great defensively, particularly on our right hand side, your left. So if they were ever going to play him on the left hand side for one game and play Cavani through the middle, that's it. This is the game.
I was just thinking, Pete, obviously you're talking about your wing backs. So if your wing backs are more natural at going forward, he's going to hope to obviously expose your right hand side with Shaw getting forward. So then Ronaldo and Cavani might even be able to make their way into the box if Shaw's able to advance because of that situation. So that's the reason I was suggesting it. I don't know if he'll do it, but it could happen.
It is like if Sancho isn't fit, he could go with that front three. It's pretty possible because if Newcastle do push their wing backs up, then it definitely is an option. But the big part of me just thinks Ronaldo, number 9. I'm not tracking back, man. Do you know, I'm playing up front. I'm the number 9. I'm the main man. Do you know, I think that's the way it is. But again, I think that obviously for me, if Jadon Sancho was fit, play him Saturday. Play him. Because I think this is a game to definitely help build his confidence. You're playing up front of Cristiano Ronaldo and Mason Greenwood. Like, come on. There's 2 sharpshooters up there who you can provide all the assists and a lot of great crosses into the box for. So yeah, that'd be my team. In terms, we'll just come to the end of the podcast right now. In terms of score predictions, this is my favorite part of the show. Because last season, Callum, we got a few right and we got quite a few wrong last season. But I'd just like to say, just throw it out there, because one of our first score prediction shows last year, we were on a Champions League preview before the PSG game, and I was one of a few people who actually predicted us to win in Paris last season. So when it comes to score prediction, I have like a 60% win rate. So I'm just about there. So hopefully we can let's make this maybe 75 this season. That's the aim. If not, I'm sacked. I need to make more progress. So if I don't get as much predictions right this season, I'm sacked, and Reese will have to take over as the main host in this podcast. But anyway, score predictions for Saturday. I'm going to come to the opposition first. Pete, give us your score prediction for the weekend.
Very, very simple. It's going to be a heavy 4-0 defeat. So Man U will win 4-0.
I'd love that. I love your confidence in Man United.
It's not even that. It's not even the confidence in Man United. It's the lack of confidence I have in Bruce setting up a team that's going to actually go there and do something. You talked about your Palaces and your Villa teams that have gone there and been resolute and difficult to beat. Bruce has never ever set us up that way. He will set us up to be defensive, but never resolute and never, solid as a defensive unit. So I don't see anything other than a drubbing, to be honest, purely because your attacking talent just completely outweighs the rest of our team.
Yeah, look, it just depends whether if Newcastle can utilise set pieces, because I know since Varane's come in and since our new set piece coach Eric Ramsey's come in, we've been a lot more solid. I think Callum, you'd agree. In the last couple of weeks, we've been very solid defensively set pieces, whereas last season, that's where every team in the league knew where to get us. So I think with Varane there and Eric Ramsey coming in, he structured us really well from a set piece point of view. If Fabian Schär plays, I just have a fear of him because he scored for against United there, I believe it was 2 seasons ago, and watching him against Ireland as well. Fucker, he scored twice against us. So I always have bad memories of Fabian Schär scoring against my teams, whether it's United or whether it's Ireland. But Callum, are you as confident as Pete that Man United are going to win the game, or are you pessimistic?
I think if United score early, I think it could be a really difficult day for Newcastle. particularly with Pete saying if someone like Matt Ritchie's potentially going to play in a wing-back area for, as I say, I've watched him play for Scotland. Obviously he was at Bournemouth before, and I just don't see him as a wing-back. I think if he starts in that position, I think United will look to exploit it. The only thing that might let him off the hook is the fact that Wan-Bissaka is very nervous when going forward. So if they're coming up against each other, that'll be an interesting battle, because Wan-Bissaka is pretty poor going forward, whereas Ritchie's very good going forward. So I'll be honest with you, I originally did think 4-0, and Pete said it as well. So I promise I'm not just saying it to agree with Pete. I was going to say 4-0. I think Ronaldo will get on the score sheet, but I think it'll be from the penalty spot.
Bruno's not taking the penalties. He made that prediction.
There's no way he's taking penalties. If Ronaldo picks that ball up, nobody's taking it off him. Nobody.
Not a hope. Not a hope. I agree. I was going to get to a couple of score predictions here in the comments as well. I had Reese's comment there. I don't know where it's gone. Hold on, I'm after losing it. Sorry about this, Reese. I'm going to get your comment up on the screen in terms of your score prediction. So Reese believes Cristiano Ronaldo is going to get a hat-trick and it's going to be 6-0. Reese, I love your confidence, but I don't think we'll score 6 Saturday. I don't think so. I love your confidence, though, pal. I really do. You're always confident we'll win every single game, but no, 6-0. Don't think so. Evan thinks it's going to be 1-0 Man United. I'd be nervous. I hate them type of games.
If you're Newcastle with the Ronaldo hype, if you can frustrate United, then you just never know.
The other one, because I had a carpenter looking at
definitely 100%.
Right.
Background.
So what we'll do is the other two boys are meant to be coming on, but when I hit
I think it's the other StreamYard link there. Right. What are we saying there, Callum?
I think that 1-0 prediction is one that could potentially come to fruition, in the sense that if Newcastle can frustrate United, given the hype of Ronaldo's return, and it's 0-0 going into half-time, and it's say 0-0 on 60 minutes, there will be a lot of nerves in that stadium. However, I think if United score early, it'll be a different story. But if Newcastle frustrate, you just never know.
Yeah, 100%. I think Newcastle could frustrate us, especially if they play 5 at the back. Like, especially if the likes of Sancho are missing, and we do have to kind of play kind of with a lack of pace up front. It could be that. In that regard, I'm going to go, because I'm conscious I do have to jump on another show as well. I'm going to go 3-0 Man United. I'm going to go Ronaldo brace. Go with Bruno Fernandes to get on the score sheet as well from play, because we may take a penalty. But we're going to wrap up. You just click end the broadcast. Just going to give the lads a chance to shout out their socials where you catch their podcasts as well. Callum, where can we catch you on your platforms?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Callum CFB, writing for World Football Index and Over the Bar, and obviously on Football CFB doing podcasts, and also on Beyond the Pitch with Phil Brown as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Do check out all them platforms. And as always, look, Callum and Phil do great podcasts over there on Beyond the Pitch, cover all things Manchester United as well. So yeah, do catch it. And also do catch Pete's podcast on Loaded Mag as well. Newcastle United. As always, smash a like in the video, hit that subscribe button. Reese will be back with the London Lowdown podcast tomorrow night. Where they will be talking about Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal as well, because Arsenal are playing on the weekend. Looks potentially be getting their 4th defeat of the season. Do check that out there as well. But as always, thanks for tuning in to Devil's Advocate to see. And as always,